What if I told you she never really loved you? Not the man sitting right there, but an illusion, a dream, a projection of who she hoped you might one day become. Let's start with a painful truth most men don't realize until it's too late. It always begins the same way. She looks at you, no, not at you, but through you, as if searching for something just beneath your surface. Her eyes don't reflect who you are. They reflect who she imagines you could be. Do you feel it? That spark, that deep, unsettling flicker in her gaze. Is it admiration, hope? Or is it hunger? Hunger for someone she's already begun to construct in her mind. You think you're being seen, but you're not. You're being scanned, analyzed like a blank canvas she's preparing to paint her masterpiece on. Only that masterpiece, it was never you. It was never meant to be. And Carl Jung warned us about this, not with cliches or motivational fluff. No, his voice was the scalpel of a surgeon, a man who spent his life dissecting the dark undercurrents of the human psyche. He wasn't interested in appearances. He stared into the abyss of the unconscious, the silent engine beneath our thoughts, emotions, and desires. And what he found terrified him. Jung uncovered that women, just like men, don't fall in love with people. They fall in love with projections, with ideas, with fantasies. And often they don't even know they're doing it. You think she's choosing you, but she's really choosing the version of you that fits the story she's been telling herself since she was a little girl. You're just the latest actor cast in a role she's been rehearsing her entire life. And when you start deviating from the script, she won't rewrite the story. She'll simply find a new actor. Jung named this unconscious projection the animus, the inner masculine figure living inside every woman. When that animus is immature, undeveloped, or unchecked, it becomes something else entirely, a tyrant. A voice that dominates her thoughts, distorts her feelings, and clouds her judgment. That animus, when left to run wild, causes women to reject kind men and chase dangerous ones. It fuels arguments that have no logic, power struggles with no resolution, moral standards with no accountability. And Jung didn't sugarcoat this. He called it what it truly is: spiritual possession. A psychological hijacking where the woman is no longer speaking or choosing from her conscious self, but from the shadowy grip of her internal masculine fantasy. And you, yes, you fall for it. Because no one ever taught you how to spot the signs. You mistake being desired for being understood. You confuse being chosen with being known. You believe her when she says, "You're different." But in truth, you're just the next man in line playing a part unknowingly in a story that was never yours. And when it falls apart, when the fantasy collapses and the lights go out, you're left in the dark. Confused, betrayed, humiliated, asking yourself, what did I do wrong? But let me tell you the truth. You didn't do anything wrong. You simply stopped being a convincing actor in someone else's theater. Jung said there's only one way out of this unconscious performance. He called it individuation, a brutal, lifelong journey of becoming whole. Not perfect, not pleasing, but whole. A man in alignment with his true self. But here's the bitter truth: most men never even begin that journey. Because we've been trained to chase applause, to perform for love, to hand over our identity in exchange for affection. You let women decide your worth. And as long as you do them, you'll keep playing the same role over and over again. And every time the audience grows bored, you're replaced. Individuation isn't glamorous. It's not the stuff of Instagram quotes or dating advice reels. It's raw. It's confronting. It asks you to dig up the parts of yourself you buried years ago, the weak, the insecure, the broken. It tells you to stop blaming women for not seeing you and start asking, why don't you see yourself? Because here's the secret Jung discovered. You don't become a man by being chosen. You become a man by choosing yourself. Your value doesn't come from her affection. It comes from your ability to stand alone, awake, responsible, alive. A man who has looked into the depths of his own unconscious cannot be manipulated by someone else's fantasy. He's not a puppet. He's not a placeholder. He's the author of his own life. Jung said the tragedy of modern men isn't that they're rejected. It's that they're willing to be reshaped, willing to bend like wet clay, willing to become whatever they think will make them lovable to women who don't even know what they truly want. You call it love, you call it compromise, you call it partnership. But Jung had a different name for it: self-betrayal. He warned us when men abandon their inner development, they become slaves to the feminine projection. And slowly they stop being men. They become masks, smiling, nodding, agreeing, performing. Until one day, they forget who they were before the mask. And women they know, they sense it on a primal level. The moment you become fully accessible, predictable, obedient, you don't become more attractive. You become disposable. Where, because the feminine isn't drawn to safety, it's drawn to mystery. Not to the man she can fully understand and control, but to the one who won't be tamed. When you make yourself fully available, no boundaries, no edges, no spine, you don't become her dream. You become invisible. And here's the dark paradox. Most men fear loneliness more than they fear inauthenticity. They'd rather lose their soul than lose her. They'd rather wear the mask than risk standing in silence. But until a man embraces solitude, until he's willing to stand in the quiet with no applause, no audience, no reward, he will never be free. Jung said individuation requires you to die before you die, to let every false version of yourself burn so that something real can finally rise. And here's the hardest part. That path, it's lonely. It's terrifyingly lonely. Because once you start seeing clearly, you can't unsee. You start recognizing the masks people wear, the games they play, the lies they live just to feel safe. And once you've tasted truth, you'll never want illusion again. But once you start seeing clearly, you can't unsee. And when you try to share what you've seen, what you've come to know, they don't thank you. They turn on you, they mock you, they call you cold, arrogant, too serious, too intense, too much. You try to speak the truth and they accuse you of being the problem. But you're not the problem, you're the mirror. And here's the brutal reality: people don't hate lies. They hate mirrors, especially when the reflection exposes something they've spent their whole lives trying to avoid. Jung knew this intimately. For decades, he sat with patients who trembled at the idea of facing themselves. They weren't afraid of the world. They were afraid of their own shadow, the dark, unclaimed corners of their psyche. They'd buried, disowned, rejected. And when it comes to women, Jung didn't tread lightly. He observed that many cultures, especially modern ones, raise women inside a dangerous illusion. They're told they're perfect, that they are naturally wise, emotionally intuitive, spiritually complete, that they are the light and any darkness must lie outside them. But Jung didn't buy into that fantasy. He warned of a deeper, quieter danger. The unconscious animus, the inner masculine voice within every woman. Not balanced, not integrated, but distorted. And when it goes unchecked, this voice doesn't whisper. It commands, with false authority, false logic, false moral superiority. He saw that if a woman avoids confronting this inner voice, she becomes enslaved by it without ever knowing. She starts projecting it outward onto men, onto you, and then suddenly every man she meets becomes either a savior or a threat in the war she refuses to fight within herself. And you step in thinking you're the one who will change everything. You believe you're the exception. You think that if you just love her more, sacrifice more, perform better, she'll finally see you. She'll finally love you for who you really are. But that's not how projection works. Jung warned that projection is a thief of truth. It doesn't negotiate. It doesn't ask questions. It replaces reality with illusion. And once that illusion sets in, both people become prisoners to a fantasy. She's not loving you. She's loving a character written by her unconscious mind. And you're not saving her. You're just rehearsing a script you were never told you were cast in. Here's the cruel twist. The very woman who once gazed at you with admiration will one day turn cold. Not because you hurt her, not because you failed, but because you failed to be the man she imagined, the one she never told you she needed. And the real tragedy, she won't even realize she's doing it. She'll say you changed, that you disappointed her. But what really happened is that the fantasy collapsed, and she mistook that collapse for betrayal. You didn't betray her, you simply weren't the illusion. Jung once said, people will do anything, no matter how absurd, to avoid facing their own souls. And nowhere is that more true than in love. In relationships, we don't just bring our hearts. We bring our wounds, our fears, our unmet childhood needs. And we lay them silently at the feet of someone else, hoping they'll fix what we've never faced ourselves. You call it love, Jung called it possession. And like a sleepwalker, you keep returning to the same kind of woman, the same dynamics, the same drama, telling yourself this time will be different. But it never is, because you haven't yet asked yourself the most terrifying question a man can face. What if I'm responsible for this pattern? You want to blame women, you want to call them manipulative, selfish, ungrateful, but Jung wouldn't let you get away with that. He'd look you straight in the eye and ask, why did you choose her? Why did you offer your soul to someone you sensed could not hold it? You see, the man who refuses to confront his own inner feminine, his longing for approval, for comfort, for softness, is destined to be ruled by hers. You're not a victim, you're a volunteer. You chose to become the actor in her fantasy. Why? Because facing your own emptiness, your own lack of wholeness, was more terrifying than pretending to be the man she wanted. And this right here is where most men stop listening, because this is where the comfort ends and the responsibility begins. Jung didn't give men formulas for dominance. He didn't offer 7 hacks to become alpha. He gave you something far more difficult, the challenge of sitting alone in the silence of your own mind until your illusions start to crack, until the voice inside your head that says you're nothing without her begins to die. And don't be mistaken, that voice won't go quietly. It will fight like hell to survive. It will scream, you need her. You're incomplete without her. No man can live without being desired. But Jung's work whispered something far more dangerous. It whispered, the man who can stand without her, without approval, without applause, without being needed, is the man who is finally free. Free from projection, free from performance, free from being shaped by someone else's idea of what a man should be. And when you arrive at that freedom, something powerful happens. You don't become bitter. You don't become distant. You become real. You become grounded, rooted, fully alive in your own skin. And paradoxically, that's when women will feel the most drawn to you. Not because you need them, but because you don't. You'll smile not out of arrogance, but out of clarity, because now you understand. You see that she too is on her own journey, that she must confront her animus, that she must wake from her illusions. And you cannot do that work for her. You can't save her. You can't drag her into the trip. All you can do is walk your own path so courageously, so fearlessly, that your very existence becomes a mirror. Not everyone will look, most will turn away, but a few, just a few, will thank you for it. And in that moment, you'll know you're no longer being loved for the role you play. You're being respected for the man you've become. And then something strange begins to happen. People start to feel uneasy around you, not because you say anything cruel or loud, but because your presence alone confronts them. They don't know what to call it. They just know you no longer fit into their safe, predictable boxes. You're not the obedient man. You're not the people pleaser. You're not the nice guy. You're something else entirely. And that, my friend, is the beginning of true masculinity. You've stepped outside the illusion, and now the world doesn't quite know what to do with you. Carl Jung warned us the individuated man, the man who has stopped performing, who has faced his own darkness, is not welcomed with open arms. He is not celebrated. He is feared. He doesn't fit the mold. He isn't relatable. He doesn't play nice with the social script. He is misunderstood, labeled cold, aloof, arrogant, even dangerous. But not because he's doing harm, no, quite the opposite. He has become untouchable, unmanipulable, unshakable. And in a world built on roles and masks, that is a threat, because he sees the game and refuses to play it. And here's the irony that would make Jung smirk. The very people who once begged for your attention, your approval, your validation, they'll start to resent you. Why? Because you no longer need theirs. You're no longer orbiting their expectations. You're no longer seeking warmth in the glow of someone else's admiration. You've pulled your light back in, and they can feel the shift. Women, especially those still trapped by the fantasy of the perfect man, will say you've changed. They'll accuse you of being emotionally unavailable, too much in your head, too analytical, too distant. But that's not what they mean. What they're really saying is, I can't control you anymore. You've stopped reading from the script they handed you. You've walked off the stage and into your own skin. And now, without the character to cling to, they don't know how to relate to the man who remains. Jung once said something both terrifying and hilarious. The gods have become diseases. What ancient cultures once understood as divine possession, modern psychology now calls neurosis. The obsessive need to be needed, to be chosen, to be validated. It's not love, it's sickness. And of all the symptoms, the man who chases validation is perhaps the most spiritually starved of all. You think it's romantic when you say, "I'd do anything for her," or "she's my everything." But Jung would shake his head, because what you call love is often just an abdication of responsibility. You're not loving, you're projecting. You're handing your soul to a woman and asking her to carry it for you. Because if she carries it, you don't have to. But here's the brutal twist. At some point, she'll realize, consciously or not, that she was never meant to carry that weight. No woman can carry the soul of a man who refuses to carry himself. And so she'll drop it. She must drop it. Not out of cruelty, but out of survival. And when she does, you'll feel betrayed, rejected, devastated. But in truth, you should feel grateful, because that collapse is a gift. In that moment, the illusion dies and you're finally face to face with the truth. The work of becoming a man was never hers to do. It was always yours. And in that raw, terrifying clarity, you are faced with a decision. Do you blame her? Do you become bitter? Do you join the chorus of angry men who mock women, who curse them, who write them off as irredeemable? Or do you take the path Jung demanded of you? Do you turn inward? Do you begin the terrifying, liberating process of individuating, of becoming whole without needing another person to complete you? Because here's the truth, the woman you keep searching for out there, she's a reflection of the part of yourself you've abandoned in here. Until you reclaim that part, every relationship will be a stage play. Every act of love, a transaction. Every embrace, a lie. But when you face your inner feminine, when you stop outsourcing your wholeness, something profound happens. You stop chasing women, you stop manipulating them, you stop performing, you begin to stand still, fully rooted, fully grounded, fully you. And in that stillness, something miraculous happens. You no longer attract women who want a character. You attract women who want truth, and you'll know when it happens, because she won't ask you to perform. She won't fall in love with a fantasy. She won't demand that you bend or shrink or twist yourself into her imagined version of you. She'll stand before you real, raw, whole, not as a goddess in need of worship, but as a human being walking her own path beside you. No masks, no projections, no games. And when you meet her, the real her, you'll feel it in your bones. There will be no desperate confessions, no promises of completion, no illusions of rescue, because she doesn't want to be saved. She's already done the work. She's already met her own shadow. She's already faced her animus. She's already burned through her own illusions. That's why she won't ask you to carry her soul, because she's already holding her own. And she'll look you in the eye, clear, steady, unmoved. Not as a man she hopes to mold, but as a man she is finally ready to meet. In that space, there is no desperation. There is no need. There is only truth. And that truth, Jung taught, is the rarest and most dangerous form of love, the kind that demands nothing but offers everything. Because it is not born of need, it is born of freedom. Freedom to choose, freedom to walk away, freedom to stand together without illusion, without masks, without fear. But I'll be honest, most men never reach this place. Most quit before they arrive. They settle for the performance, for the fantasy, for the applause. They settle for being seen as someone they're not, because facing who they truly are still feels too unbearable. But if you have the courage, the brutal, soul-tearing courage to keep going, to stand alone, to strip away every false layer, you'll arrive at something terrifyingly beautiful. You'll arrive at yourself. And when you do, women will no longer be the source of your identity. They won't be your mirror. They won't be your mother. They won't be your savior. They will be what they were always meant to be: partners, not prizes. Mirrors, not masks. Allies, not answers. And you will love them not because you need to, but because you choose to. From strength, from clarity, from a wholeness that no one gave you and no one can take away. Carl Jung didn't hand you a manual. He handed you a warning. A warning that if you refuse to confront your own soul, you will forever be a slave to someone else's fantasy, especially a woman's. But he also left you a challenge to walk the path of individuation, to stop blaming women for the roles you volunteered to play, to stop waiting to be chosen. Because the man who chooses himself fully, unapologetically, relentlessly, is the man who cannot be seduced by illusion. He cannot be manipulated by fantasy. He cannot be reduced to a character in someone else's script. He becomes the author of his own life. So if you've made it this far, if something deep in you stirred while watching this, don't scroll past. Do something like this video. Share it with another man who's still lost in the illusion. Subscribe, because this isn't just content, it's a message. And your support, it's not just for us, it's for the next man out there, still living in someone else's dream, still waiting to be awakened. Help us reach him. Help us wake the world one man at a time.